Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Joker mask. Previously, a presumed dead Batman recuperated while a mask-powered Joker ran roughshod through Gotham. Deciding to televise his rampage, he made short work of the best law enforcement could throw at him. After she's replaced with a pair of scantily clad co-stars, Harley Quinn decides she wants the old Joker back, and turns to her old pal Poison Ivy for help. The cover for issue 3 features the green-thumbed woman ensnaring Joker and Big Head. But no worries, cause hedge clippers! We begin with the revelation that Access Gotham has been rebranded, in name and building, as Access Joker. Banned in 5 states. They introduce their new segment, Who Wants to Be a Smilin' Heir? And their first captive contestant is Bob Eisenstein of the IRS, who tried to get Joker locked up for tax evasion 3 years ago. Considering everything else the guy has done, this seems like pretty small potatoes. What steady job did Joker have at the time that meant he'd need to be doing taxes at all? Bob is asked how many people were killed by a bomb Joker planted the previous September. 9, 17, a chicken, or 28. He's encouraged to answer at gunpoint, and the taxman just straight up says Joker isn't funny. You think a lame game show parody where you threaten an innocent person is gonna make people laugh? He's right. I bet actual reality shows have tried that before already. Anyway, faced with either being shot or giving an uncertain answer, Bob responds that 9 people died. Turns out Batman saved all the people, but the chicken didn't make it. So, out the window with the taxman. Fortunately, the police prepared a safety mat that saves his life, and also somehow unties him, and prevents injury that'd likely occur from falling from that high while being tied to a chair. How lucky! Joker retaliates by firing a couple missiles at the cops, and at a rival channel's copter for allegedly horning in on his ratings. The only solace that Kellaway and the GCPD can take away is that the lunatic is contained. In Ivy's greenhouse, Harley continues to bemoan what her bombastic boyfriend has become. Fortunately, Pam's whipped up a perfume sprayer full of a glowing red liquid she's certain will help remove the mask. In exchange, Harl's gonna crash with Pam for safety, while Mr. J has some alone time. Don't fall for it, Harley! She just wants an excuse to drag you to her 3-hour one-woman show at the community theater. Take your chances with a superpowered lunatic! Bruce, meanwhile, has been researching the mask, figuring the same as Harley that it grants magical powers and feeds off the subconscious of the wearer, while bringing their uninhibited desires to the fore. The thing is, Joker doesn't have any inhibitions, and is now unstoppable. There have been brief periods where Big Head disappeared, but Wayne figures the wearers went insane from using the mask. Since Joker's already nuts, bats will have to get a lot better, a lot quicker. Alfred, bring me a senzu! Sir, I'm afraid those don't exist. Those are just in a cartoon. All right, bring me a bat senzu! Jokerhead isn't exactly thrilled at the news that his ratings are dropping, despite having Nip and Tuck at his side and throwing someone from the IRS out a window. And despite thinking that they were the key to his success before, he now complains that Gotham only seems to care about explosions. Harley returns, which is good news for the unopened mail, and of course Pamela Isley isn't far behind, whom Joker calls Green Peace, with an IE, which I think is pretty clever. It takes some waterworks on Quinn's part, but Mr. J agrees that the pair can have a gardening spot on the show, and then he finds Nip and Tuck either unconscious or dead, maybe the latter since a plant is protruding from one's mouth. But he doesn't exactly grieve since he goes straight back to Jessica to plan something big to make up for the inevitable dullness Ivy and Harley will bring with their airtime. The spot begins with Ivy feeding a plant with a quick growth formula, then decrying the actions of logging and oil companies. Since those are advertisers, Joker puts a stop to the segment, only to be ensnared by vines and sprayed with the herbal tonic she and Harley cooked up, making Joker her obedient servant. just before they throw up their technical difficulties card. As Batman prepares for when Pamela's actions eventually backfire, Jim Gordon thinks this might actually give them a break, since Ivy isn't quite as crazy as the clown, and Calloway continues to be useless, not wanting to share any ideas he might have. At this point, I think the lieutenant here could be legitimately arrested for obstruction of justice. This is the third crossover I've reviewed this year where at least one potentially useful character does all of Jack's squat. Back at the Access Joker offices, its usurper is none too pleased with his new indentured servitude, but Harley insists it's for his own good in removing the mask, a prospect most frightening to him. Ivy sips some wine and promises she'll get to that eventually. First, she has him taking out a logging company and an oil refinery in fashions most ironic, all for the good of the environment. Because, all that burning oil from that explosion is clearly great for Mother Earth, right, Pammy? She's supposed to be a scientist, right? Anyway, Batman has seen all he can stands and can't stands no more, and he somehow gets word to Jim Gordon he's alive. The commish also found out that the currently AWOL Calloway has been holding out on them regarding the mask. So I guess it's only fair that Gordon not explain how he got that information. Oi. Joker has rickshawed Pam and Harley back to the studio just as Calloway gets the drop on them, threatening the plant lady with a shotgun until she orders the mask off. But once told that he's a cop and won't shoot, he's immediately incapacitated like a sack of potatoes that are bad at their job. His life on the line, the lieutenant suggests Ivy wear the mask, an idea she doesn't hesitate to go for as she orders Joker to fork it over. He finally removes it, though oddly still with the jagged-style dialogue bubble as when he was wearing it. And he notes that now he's no longer susceptible to her mind control, slapping her aside as he washes the mask off with a seltzer bottle he'd probably always have without the use of magic powers, because he's the Joker. After reapplying the mask as Calloway sneaks away, Joker slaps Ivy again, after turning his hand into stone? An odd-looking anvil? Difficult to tell, but it's pretty solid. He then changes it to a spiked paddle as he advances on Harleen, who pleads for his old self, asking what happened to the man that was funny. A lot, actually. Scott Snyder, the Suicide Squad movie, probably a third thing that's also two words beginning with S. Handing over a mirror. Mirror! She says he now more resembles those sad clown masks that he hated so much at the beginning of issue 1, trying too hard to get a laugh, and the standard Joker in the reflection seems to agree. But nuts to that noise, Big Head Jay believes he's the same as ever and probably even funnier, and he'll prove it by doing something he'd only previously joked about in his pre-mask days. Atop GCPD headquarters, Gordon is telling Bats and Bullock about how serious things seem to have become with the green-faced clown as Calloway makes his return, now with a file with his years of research into the mask that he withheld to protect his fellow officers. Idiotic reasoning, but at least he's finally doing something! So I imagine his dossier will be invaluable to... And Batman already knows everything in the file. Of course he does. He was only comatose for half a week before doing a back Google search for magical green-faced psychos. Even when he tries to be helpful, Calloway manages to be 100 steps behind. Is he anything like this in the Mask comics? Calloway will only give up the information on removing the mask if he's part of the capture. Or until the Dark Knight says he hasn't got time for this kind of nonsense, at which point the lieutenant confesses only the wearer can remove it. Unless I guess they're a quadruped. But it's time to start evacuating the city, as Joker has prepped an enormous bomb, complete with Skull and Bones launch button, and Harley, Ivy, and Jessica tied and gagged to the weapon. So he's a reality TV star that's emotionally unstable, declined in quality, is delusional about his state of being, and decides to take it out on the audience and anyone that supported him. I guess what I'm saying is we have a new candidate for the 2020 presidential election! The final issue sees Batman grasping Joker by the vest, but he's in hysterics over Big Head grabbing Batsy's ears. One thing I'll note about these covers, they give you a general feel for what's going on without actually spoiling anything. Joker begins his series finale by introducing the 50-megaton Bob, a thermonuclear warhead straight out of the Air Force. But he'll wait until prime time to detonate. Not sure why he didn't just conjure a bomb, but whatever. Police snipers are trained on him, but Gordon doesn't want to provoke the madman. Calloway leaves to try and stop him. "You said he couldn't be stopped." "Maybe I was wrong." Well, considering he's been nothing but wrong in keeping important information to himself, that'd be pretty consistent. Meanwhile, Joker's hostages have mysteriously lost the tape over their mouths, for some reason. Maybe so Harley can again plead that this isn't Joker's style, despite Ivy's pointed disagreement. Big Head Joker says his old self is gone for good, then morphs through several new iterations, each of which Harley finds some fault with, be it looking like something out of the Matrix, or a 40s-era gangster, a cyborg. However, she does warm up to the idea of the Batman Beyond style look. An upstanding, law-abiding teenager has a chance encounter with the older Joker, who then grooms him to become the clown prince of crime of the future! Hey, Cartoon Network's greenlit worse. The Batwing soars by, netting Joker, who's tearfully glad his nemesis is alive, then is promptly slammed against a building and gets sucked into the turbines, which one would think would cause serious damage to the plane, but it doesn't seem to. After a brief gag where Mr. J is dressed like a certain mild-mannered reporter, holding what Lois Lane would have been if she'd been New 52 the same way Starfire was, has become Super Joker on the following splash page. I know it's just done for a gag, but in order for this to work, it almost seems like Joker would have to know Superman's alter ego. And it wouldn't be that far-fetched when you think about it, especially if you consider how long it was theorized that he already knew Batman's identity. The Jade Jester catches up with the plane and begins tearing up its chassis, only for Batman to eject before detonating his ride. Non-lethal given his new abilities, but Harley is less than convinced, for some reason. "I always knew you was a murderer, you stinky bat!" If she really believes that, I wonder if she's going to ask him on a date in a couple minutes. Probably not, since Super J knocks pointy ears back with his sight gag vision, much to Quinn's joy. Now her attitude has changed. Magic mask or no, she'll take Joker any way she can get him. Some people have taken that attitude with Cassandra Cain ever since she reappeared. I am not one of those people. Calloway appears, brandishing a shotgun and ordering Joker to take the mask off. The clown again berates the police use of guns, which feels super redundant, then blasts it in two with his I-beams while also hitting the cop. Bats climbs back onto the roof where the two do battle, with Mr. J delivering a decisive, oversized boxing glove punch, declaring himself the winner. But the Caped Crusader tells him he isn't the Joker. The real deal wouldn't go for the spectacle of an oversized bomb or pander to people who just like big kabooms. He was sick, but he was also original. Sometimes the Joker was even funny. You, not even close. When Jokehead says he's funnier than ever, another voice intercedes. You're funny like Killer Croc is a Mensa graduate. Mensa isn't a school, last I checked. It's a global organization for people with high IQs. You can no more graduate from them than you can Toys for Tots. I guess the joke could be that if he'd been a member of Mensa and that's still in school, but I'm reading too far into this joke, aren't I? I've heard of split personalities, but this is ridiculous. The normal Joker's head pops out, the source of new derision to the lime-domed louse. You know what your problem is? You got so busy telling us how funny you are, you forgot the jokes! I know he's saying this to the mask, but I can think of so many others this applies to. Anyway, the legit Joker breaks from the surface enough to pull the mask off, and he's back to his old self, just in time to get decked by the Batman, who admits to lying to get the mask off, specifically about the Joker ever being funny. When he reaches for the artifact again, police snipers shoot it away, ordered to go for his hands if he tries again. You'd think they'd go for his head after all his recent crimes, but whatever. Mr. J settles for detonating the warhead, and Harley is content enough that she'll die with her man as he falls on a giant button.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Turns out Kellaway was saving all his usefulness for cutting the wires to the bomb. Sheesh, how useless does he have to act before doing something more complicated like driving or operating a lawnmower? It's not long before Harley and Joker are in handcuffs, and she tells him that he only had a bad day. It takes a moment, but it sinks into Mr. J that she has a point, and tomorrow's another day and another chance at mayhem. After Bullock gets some wedgie revenge, Kellaway is leaving in a taxi, with an exchange between Batman and Gordon telling us that he should know better than anyone how to deal with the mask.
Yeah, because that totally sounds like Batman. He encounters an unassuming source of unlimited magical power and lets a guy that did exactly one useful thing walk off with it. It's not like Bats would ever want to keep it secured himself because he'd know it was secure. That'd be as crazy as him having a contingency plan in case one of his buddies wants to take over the world with their superpowers. Why is Batman letting him go away with the mask?
The comic ends in the Edge City Cemetery, at the dug-up grave of Stanley Ipkiss. Kellaway places the mask in the arms of the yellow-suited skeleton, and tells both Stan and Big Head to rest in peace before he reburies them.
Because I guess fire or a sledgehammer wouldn't have been a smarter option? Anyway, that was Joker Mask. It was mostly enjoyable, and I didn't feel totally lost because I never read a Mask comic. Though, yeah, there's the whole thing with Kellaway not really doing much.
The art lent itself to a certain level of exaggeration, but I think it was done in a style evoking squash and stretch animation, which totally makes sense when the wearer can create something from thin air or use their vocalizations as offensive weapons. There were a couple of fun references, one to Batman the Animated Series, and to another franchise, Sam and Max. On a technical level, I couldn't find many mistakes. Joker's gloves kind of switch between orange and white, but that's about it. Characterizations felt mostly on point, though I personally felt there was slang in Joker's dialogue that kind of felt off, but hey, maybe that's just me. Bats doesn't feature much, but that's fine because this isn't really a story about him. Shocking, I know.
I do wonder if Jessica Platinum or anyone else working for those TV studios that willingly showed the Joker's antics would be arrested for aiding and abetting a criminal. I imagine they could say that they felt threatened for their lives, but then again, a bunch of people were injured or died, and a lot of havoc was caused, so I don't know how well that would fly in court.
Throughout the story, Harley kind of felt all over the place. She blames herself for her man succumbing to an exceedingly powerful alter ego when he'd already been tempted by it, independent of her opinion. Then she wants him back to how he was. Then she'll take him however she can get him. You could try blaming all that on her fixation on the Clown Prince of Crime, but it really just comes off as unfocused.
The story does bring up a couple of things I find very interesting. One is that the Joker as himself is far funnier than a version with superpowers taking things to the extreme. Also funnier than latter-day versions in the comics, or film, or... Anyway, there's also an intriguing parallel drawn between him and Batman.
Both are more or less normal guys. They just happen to be very intelligent, clever, and resourceful. When given powers beyond those of mortal men, they begin losing themselves. This was characterized for Batman when he became addicted to venom, and that was before Bane was ever created, or when he gained Superman's powers. Only in Joker's case, it's more about the art of comedy than the art of dislocating a mugger's shoulder.
The other takeaway is this dynamic they show between Harley and Joker that's much more affectionately reciprocated than in more recent iterations in the last several years. Frankly, I prefer them in here, but that's probably a discussion for another time. Overall, you might get a kick out of this story, even if you aren't a Mask fan, but it isn't without some logical plot holes. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.